Underlying love, beneath the surface it lies, in the whispers of secrets and unspoken ties, caught between the heart's gentle tug and the dance of romance, in the arms of love.
You are listening to Bradley Barkhurst's Underlying Love, a Worthington, Ohio Mystery. Chapter 3, Part 1, Journey to the Queen City. Elizabeth awoke before dawn, heart pounding. Today was the day she would journey to Cincinnati to see her ailing Aunt Gracie. But also, heavy on her mind, was the ghost from her past, Samuel, who had appeared at the New England Inn. Shaking off dreams filled with his memory, Elizabeth washed and dressed efficiently in her traveling clothes. She made herself a quick breakfast, but could barely eat from the nervous flutters in her stomach. Outside, the late September air was unusually crisp and cool. Elizabeth pulled her coat tighter as she walked briskly with the suitcase in hand to the Greyhound bus stop that was by Bernie's drugstore across the street from her father's store. Some lamps were glowing warmly in a few shop windows, and Milkman Bailey was making his rounds. Elizabeth arrived on time as the Greyhound bus pulled up with a squeal of brakes. She presented her ticket with cold, trembling fingers and found her seat. Glancing at her watch, she saw it was precisely 9 a.m. With a roar of its engines, the bus lurched forward, and they were off. Elizabeth gazed out the window as familiar streets rolled by on High Street, the steepled church, the grocers and barbers' shops. All were slowly waking to meet the new day. Soon, they were on the outskirts of downtown, picking up speed as they joined the main highway heading south. Columbus appeared on the horizon as a cluster of buildings in the distance. But rather than its usual thrilling bustle, this morning, the city seemed shrouded in the same somber quiet as Elizabeth's hometown. As the bus rumbled on, Elizabeth tried to focus on the book in her hands, but the words blurred together meaninglessly. Her mind kept drifting back to her high school days with Samuel. She saw his smile and heard his laugh, felt the brush of his hand against hers as they walked together. Back then, weekends often found them escaping town on bicycle adventures. Samuel would arrive early, knocking at her door with a secretive grin. They'd pedal briskly out Willowbrook Road, the wind whipping their hair. Just through the old Wilson apple orchard was their favorite spot, a secluded bend along the Olentangy River. Samuel would spread out the picnic lunch he had packed, while Elizabeth admired the glint of sunlight on the river. After eating, they would lounge on the grass together, while he read poetry that he wrote. The one that always made her giggle was one called My Sicilian Sassafras. Samuel would read it to her.
A playful ode to my darling Elizabeth, whose smiles lift my spirits like the sun breaking dawn. Eyes shining bright as stars over Worthington, with laughter warm as apple pie fresh from the oven. My heart stirs like leaves rustling in autumn's wind. When you pass by, your lovely dark hair curled just so. No mystery or darkness can extinguish the light of your intrepid heart, you wonderful darling. Let us stroll Worthington's lanes hand in hand, while cardinals sing songs of our renewed love. No more rhyme or reason when we're apart. My heart belongs to you, my sweet Sicilian Sassafras.
All too soon, the afternoon would fade, and they'd bicycle back before dark with flushed cheeks and racing hearts. A bump jolted Elizabeth from her reverie. She looked around in surprise to see they had stopped in a small town. Washington Courthouse read the sign at the bus stop where some passengers were disembarking. The bus driver announced a 30-minute break. Elizabeth walked out of the bus and joined the queue entering the nearby diner. Too distracted to be hungry, but knowing she should eat. The short respite gave her time to regain composure before the final leg to Cincinnati. The bus depot diner was nearly empty at this hour. Elizabeth ordered a coffee to be polite, though her nervous stomach rebelled at the thought of food. She sipped the hot, bitter liquid slowly, watching the hands on the clock tick by. Back on the bus, the caffeine coursed through her veins, making her restless. As the bus once again lurched into motion and raced an endless flat landscape of farms and fields, Elizabeth's thoughts also raced. Where had Samuel been all these years? What had his life become after they parted ways? Had he married or had children? She knew nothing of what he did during the long, lean years of the Depression. And now, suddenly, he was back in town. Why? She had to talk to him, to understand what it meant. Elizabeth gazed out at the flat fields rolling by, steeling herself for the conversation ahead. The coffee stirred a tempest of excitement and anxiety within her. Elizabeth's emotions swung wildly between anticipation of seeing Samuel again and doubt over the wisdom of reopening old wounds. Her mind then turned to George, her dutiful fiancé, awaiting her return. He offered security, stability, and all that she needed to settle down properly. But when she pictured him, Elizabeth felt no quickening of her pulse, no bubbling joy. Not like with Samuel, but that was 6 years ago.
"Get your head together, Lizzie,"
Elizabeth said to herself. Outside the bus windows, the scenery blurred past unnoticed. Elizabeth shifted in her seat, wiping the dew on the window, unable to get comfortable. She had to talk to Samuel, had to look into those warm brown eyes again, and understand what his return meant. Until she did, Elizabeth knew her memories would continue tormenting her heart and taunting her future happiness. As the bus droned on, Elizabeth slipped into a dreamlike state, tossing between fitful bouts of sleeping and waking. Her thoughts rolled like the passing countryside, up and down through memories and possibilities. One moment, she pictured herself gliding down the aisle towards steadfast George, ready to begin a sensible new life. But then, her dreams would transform into bike rides with playful Samuel, filled with laughter and stolen kisses that tasted so sweet. Back and forth, her imagination swung between the two men. When dreaming of Samuel, joy illuminated her soul. But those carefree days were long gone. The Samuel she knew had disappeared without a word. Anger suddenly pierced through Elizabeth's reverie. After all, they had shared. He had not bothered to write, even once, during their years apart. She had waited in vain for some sign while trying to mend her broken heart. Elizabeth knew Samuel had left to work his grandparents' farm in Kansas when the Depression struck. All he did was leave her one small card in her mailbox stating that he was leaving. But in her mind, that did not excuse his silence. He could have reached out and let her know he still cared. The gulf of unanswered questions between them still ached. The bus hit a bump, and Elizabeth jolted awake, cheeks wet with tears. Disoriented, she looked around to see city buildings gliding past the window. They were here, Cincinnati.
You have arrived at your destination, the Queen City.
the driver announced cheerfully. Elizabeth hastily dried her eyes, trying to compose herself before the bus rolled to a stop. Stepping off the bus into the morning sunlight, Elizabeth immediately spotted her mother and Uncle Herbert waiting beside his polished blue Studebaker champion.
Lizzie, you're here.
Her mother cried, rushing over to embrace her. Elizabeth sank into the comforting familiarity of her mother's arms.
Well, hey there, Lizzie girl. You're looking as pretty as a new penny.
Her uncle said with a wink, giving her shoulder an affectionate squeeze. Even with worry weighing on him, her uncle's humor shone through. The three climbed into the car and were soon gliding through the streets of Cincinnati. To Elizabeth, the bustling city felt thrillingly alive, like New York itself.
How was your journey, dear?
Her mother asked.
Uneventful, thankfully.
Elizabeth said.
And how is Aunt Gracie holding up?
Her uncle shook his head grimly.
Not well, I'm afraid. She's fading faster than the leaves in autumn.
Now, Herbert, you mustn't talk about your wife like that.
Her mother chided. She turned to Elizabeth with a brave smile.
Gracie is comfortable and holding her own for now.
Elizabeth nodded, bracing herself for what was to come. She reached over and gave her mother's hand a comforting squeeze. Aunt Gracie was 10 years older than her mother, and Elizabeth always thought wiser. They soon pulled up at the imposing hospital building. Inside, the smell of antiseptic hung heavy in the air. Elizabeth shivered as they stepped into the rickety elevator cage that took them up to the 3rd floor. Down the long corridor was Aunt Gracie's room. Elizabeth hesitated at the door, pulse racing. She felt her mother's hand on her back, guiding her forward.
Thank you for listening to Bradley Barkhurst's Underlying Love, a Worthington, Ohio mystery. Now that Elizabeth is about to open the door to Aunt Gracie's room, what will she find? Will Aunt Gracie have anything to say? Will she get better? Tune in to the next episode, Chapter 3, Part 2, Journey to the Queen City.
Oh, my sweet Sicilian Sassafras, dancing cheek to cheek under the stars. Your love, it fills my heart with a joyous beat, forever lost in your arms, my sweet Sicilian.